A Course in Miracles, the original and annotated edition. Introduction. This is a Course in Miracles. This is a required course. Only the time you take it is voluntary. Free will does not mean that you can establish the curriculum. Free will means only that you can elect what you want to take at a given time. This course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. This course does aim, however, at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. The opposite of love is fear, but what is all-encompassing can have no opposite. This course can therefore be summed up very simply in this way. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. Chapter 1. Principles of Miracles. You will see miracles through your hands, through me. Principle number 1. The first principle of miracles is that there is no order of difficulty among miracles. One miracle is not harder or bigger than another miracle. Miracles are all the same. Miracles themselves do not matter. Miracles in themselves do not matter. Miracles in themselves are quite unimportant. 3. Miracles occur naturally as expressions of love. The real miracle is the love that inspires the miracles. In this sense, everything that comes from love is a miracle. Note number 2. This explains their lack of order. All expressions of love are maximal. This also explains why miracles in themselves do not matter. The only thing that matters is the source of miracles, and this source of miracles is far beyond human evaluation. Please read these 3 principles as often as you can today, as if there were going to be a quiz this evening. This is merely to introduce structure, if structure is needed. It is not to frighten you. Do not feel guilty if you are doubting these principles. Just reread them, and their truth will come to you. My strength will support you, so don't worry and leave the rest to me. Note number 4. All miracles mean life, and God is the giver of life. God will direct you very specifically. Plan ahead is good advice in this world, where you should and must control and direct where you have accepted responsibility. But the universal plan is in more appropriate hands. You will know all you need to know. Make no attempts to plan ahead in this respect. Miracle principle number 4. Miracles are habits and should be involuntary. Otherwise, miracles may become undemocratic. Selective miracles are dangerous and may destroy the talent. Footnote on note number 4. Undemocratic means they would not be expressing social equality. Miracles would not then be treating everyone equally, but just given specially to some. In other words, miracles would be given out, quote, selectively, as the next sentence says. Miracle principle number 5. Miracles are natural. When miracles do not occur, something has gone wrong. Miracle principle number 6. Miracles are everyone's right, but purification is necessary first. And the footnote on note number 6 is, the purification necessary is not of the body or soul, but of our thoughts. As we see in this line from lesson 151 of the workbook, your ministry, which consists of giving miracles, begins as all of your thoughts are purified. Miracle principle number 7. Miracles are a form of healing. Miracles supply a lack and are performed by those who have more for those who have less. Miracle principle number 8. Miracles are a kind of exchange. Like all expressions of love, which are always miraculous in the true sense, the exchange reverses physical laws. Miracle principle number 9. A miracle is a reversal of the physical order because miracles bring more love to the giver and to the receiver. Miracle principle number 10. The use of miracles as spectacles to induce belief is wrong. Miracles are really used for and by believers. A miracle is misunderstood when a miracle is regarded as a spectacle. Miracle principle number 11. Prayer is the medium of miracles. Prayer is the natural communication between the created and the creator. Through prayer, love is received, and through miracles, love is expressed. Principle number 12. Miracles are the effects of thoughts. Thought can make the lower order, or thoughts can create the higher order. This is the basic distinction between intellectualizing and true thinking. Intellectualizing makes the physical, and true thinking creates the spiritual, and we believe in what we create. Footnote on number 12. Is that intellectualization is not just engaging in intellectual activity. Intellectualization is a defense mechanism that uses reasoning to block out emotional stress and conflict. Miracle principle number 13. A miracle is a beginning and an ending. A miracle is a beginning and an ending. A miracle thus abolishes time. A miracle is always an affirmation of rebirth, which seems to go back, but really goes forward. The miracle undoes the past in the present and thus releases the future. Note on principle 13, yet there may still be one more thing, your fear of punishment for what is done now. Everybody makes mistakes. These errors are completely trivial. When the past has been forgiven, these minor infractions are very easily altered. When the past has been forgiven. Miracle principle number 14. All miracles attest to truth. And miracles are convincing because miracles arise from conviction. Without conviction, miracles deteriorate into magic, which is mindless and therefore destructive, or rather, the uncreative use of mind. Miracle principle number 15. Each day should be devoted to miracles. Time was made so you could use time creatively. Time was made so that you could use time creatively, which is to use time to convince yourself of your own ability to create. Time is therefore a teaching device and a means to an end. Time will cease when time is no longer useful in facilitating learning. Note number 2 on Miracle Principle 15, have a good day, period. Since only eternity is real, why not use the illusion of time constructively? You might remember that, quote, underneath are the everlasting arms, unquote. You should begin each day with the prayer, help me to perform whatever miracles you want of me today, unquote. Note number 3, notes on this course should be read only under good learning conditions. And notes on this course should also be reviewed with the same rule applying to review periods. I'll tell you when, but remember to ask. Miracle principle number 16. Miracles are teaching devices for demonstrating that it is as blessed to give as it is to receive. Miracles simultaneously increase the reserve of strength in the giver and supply the lack of strength in the receiver. Note number 2 on Principle 16, I have forgiven you. And that means that all the hurt and all the hate that you have expressed is canceled. I need the children of God. I need the children of light now. I need the children of light now. And you who live so close to God must not give way to guilt. The karmic law demands abandonment for abandoning, but you have received mercy, not, quote, justice. Help the children because you love them and because you love God. Remember, a miracle is a spark of life. A miracle is a spark of life. A miracle shines through the darkness and brings in the light. You must begin to forget and remember. Miracles are the absence of the body. This is miracle principle number 17. Miracles are the absence of the body. Miracles are sudden shifts into invisibility away from the physical level, and that is why miracles heal. Why do miracles heal? Because miracles are sudden shifts into invisibility away from the physical level. In other words, miracles are the absence of the body. Miracle principle number 18. A miracle is a service. It is the maximal service one person can render to another. A miracle is thus a way of loving your neighbor as yourself. The doer recognizes his own and his neighbor's inestimable value simultaneously. The miracle is a way of loving your neighbor as yourself, The miracle doer recognizes their own and their neighbor's inestimable value simultaneously. Note number 2 on miracle principle. Miracle principle number 18, note number 2. This is why you cannot keep anything you hold against another. If you hold anything, if you keep anything, if you hold anything against another, your own value is no longer inestimable, because you are estimating your value as infinity minus that amount of the value you've placed on another. If you hold anything against another, your own value is no longer inestimable, because you are estimating your own value as infinity minus the amount of what you are holding against another. Note number 3 on Miracle Principle 18 on sexuality. Homosexuality is lacking in love only to the extent it is based on the principle of exclusion. Everybody should love everybody. It's wrong to deny the beauty of some souls because of body structures of which you are afraid. This is essentially an unhealthy attempt to limit your fear. But fear can't be limited, just as love cannot have limits. Heterosexual attitudes can be similarly distorted, but do contain a more natural potential for having children. Sexual relations were intended for having children. You have misunderstood sex because you regard sex as a way of establishing human contact for yourself. You have misunderstood sex because you regard sex as a way of establishing human contact for yourself. And using sex or regarding sex as a way of establishing human contact for yourself has led to body image problems. Children are miracles in their own right. Children already have the gift of life, and their parents provide them with the opportunity to express the gift of life that they already have before they were born. Nothing physical, mental, or spiritual should be used selfishly. The pleasure from using anything should come from utilizing it for God's will, love's will. You should live so that God is free. You should live so that God is free to arrange temporary human constellations as God sees fit. And if you have not had children, do not interpret this in terms of guilt. Many children who are already here need spiritual parents. The poor are always with us, and many who are born have not yet been reborn. Human birth, maturation, and development is a microcosmic representation of a much larger process of creation and development of abilities. Human birth, maturation, and development is subject to error as long as the real purpose of free will is misunderstood and misdirected. Sex and having children is subject to error as long as the real purpose of free will is misunderstood and misdirected. The real function of parents is to be wiser than their children in this respect and to teach the children accordingly. Miracle principle number 19. Miracles make minds one in Christ. Miracles are a corporate necessity. Industry depends on cooperation, and cooperation depends on miracles. Note number 2 on Miracle Principle 19, corporate refers to the body of love, which is a way of referring to the church. But the church of God is merely the sum of the minds God created. This is the corporate body of love. Miracle Principle number 20. Miracles rest on the law and order of eternity, not the arc of time. Miracle Principle number 21. A miracle reawakens the awareness that the spirit and not the body is the altar of truth. Recognizing and the awareness being reawakened that the spirit, not the body, is the altar of truth is the recognition that leads to the healing power of the miracle. Your abilities will be very useful when your abilities come under the involuntary control rather than involuntary lack of control. Following the right involuntary guide will enable you to recognize both physical and spiritual dangers and will provide the means for avoiding each of them in the most efficient way. This is a case in which the end does justify the means. Following the right involuntary guide will enable you to recognize both physical and spiritual dangers and will provide the means for avoiding each of them in the most efficient way. Note number 3 on Miracle Principle. Miracle Principle. Miracle Principle 21, note number 3. It is only when means and ends are not of the same order of reality that there is fear. This fear arises out of the inescapable awareness which you were given by God for all time, that only the appropriate means can work for the different kinds of ends you must accomplish before you can achieve your one end. This awareness is a built-in check which was necessary if you were to use the temporary expedient of time usefully. While there is time, communion and bread are both necessary. While there is time, communion and bread are both necessary. Without either communion or bread, you feel deprived. And without communion and bread, you cannot escape this by confusing the two. You cannot escape needing them both, communion and bread, while there is time. You can't escape this by confusing communion and bread. All depression and all fear and embarrassment ultimately stem from this confusion between communion and bread, which you need both while there is time. Don't think that bread is communion and don't think communion is bread in time. Miracle Principle number 22. Miracles are natural expressions of total forgiveness. Through miracles, you affirm your acceptance of God's forgiveness by extending it to others. The second step is inherent in the first because light cannot tolerate darkness. Light, by definition, dispels darkness automatically. Miracles are associated with fear only because of the fallacy that darkness can hide. People believe that what they cannot see does not exist, and their physical eyes cannot see in the dark. Believing that what you cannot see does not exist is a very primitive solution. And believing that what you cannot see does not exist, that has led to a denial of the spiritual eye which always depends on light. Note number 4 on miracle principle number 22. There are 2 stages, one lower, one higher, which are involved in the escape from darkness. The first is the recognition that darkness cannot hide. This recognition that darkness and the ego and my fear cannot hide usually does entail fear. The second stage of the escape from darkness is that there is nothing you want to hide, even if you could. And this brings escape from fear. Note number 5. As soon as you have completely entered the second phase, where you realize that there's nothing you want to hide, even if you could, you will not only be willing to enter into communion, but you will also understand peace and joy. Your commitment is not yet total. Your commitment to not hide, apart from the fact that you can't hide, is not yet total. And that is why you still have more to learn than to teach. And when your equilibrium stabilizes, then you'll be able to teach as much as you learn. And when your equilibrium between learning and teaching stabilizes, and you're able to teach as much as you learn, this will give you the proper sense of balance. But meanwhile, before that proper sense of equilibrium has been established, before your equilibrium between teaching and learning stabilizes, remember, meanwhile, that no effort is wasted. Remember that no effort is wasted. And unless you remember that no effort is wasted, even while you are seeking that equilibrium stabilization between learning and teaching, unless you learn that no effort is wasted, then you cannot avail yourself of my efforts, says our teacher, my efforts which are limitless. The biblical teaching that if you are ashamed of me before men, I will be ashamed of you before God is interpreted as a threat only as you remain at the first stage. What it really means is that if you are ashamed of love, if you are embarrassed by love, you will project and therefore make it impossible for me to reach you. Make every effort you can not to be embarrassed by love and me, says our teacher, and I will help you as much as you will let me. Miracle principle number 23. Miracles make time and tide wait for all men. Miracles can heal the sick and raise the dead because you yourself made death and taxes and can abolish both. Note that tax also means strain. Note number 2 on Miracle Principle 23, you are a miracle. God creates only, quote, that which or one who is of surpassing excellence or merit, unquote. That is a dictionary definition of miracles. You are capable of this kind of creation too, being in the likeness and image of your own Creator. Anything else is your own nightmare and does not exist. And that's because only the creations of light are real. You who are wholly lovely, you are wholly lovely. You are a perfect shaft of pure light. Before your loveliness, the stars stand transfixed and bow to the power of your will. What do children know of their creation? What do children know of their creation except what their Creator tells them? You were created above the angels because your role involves creation as well as protection. You who are in the image of the Father need bow only to God, before whom I kneel with you, says our teacher. Miracle principle number 24. Miracles are part of an interlocking chain of forgiveness which, when completed, is the atonement, is the plan, the healing plan of man. This process, this healing plan of man, works all the time and in all dimensions of time. Note number 2. I am in charge of this process of the healing plan of man, which I undertook to begin. My part in this plan, says our teacher, was the canceling out of all sins which you could not otherwise correct. That is what the biblical statement, underneath all the everlasting arms, means. However, it is clear that when you can heal by miracles, both giver and receiver are healing. It is better to heal this way because of the mutual benefits involved. Inasmuch as you do it unto the least of these, my brethren, really ends with, quote, you do it unto yourself and me. The reason why you come before me is because I don't need miracles for my own healing, but I stand at the end in case you fail temporarily, says our teacher. Note number 3. The word, quote, sin, the word sin should really be, quote, absence of love. Sin is a man-made word with threat connotations that man made up himself. No real threat is involved anywhere. And just because, quote, nature abhors a vacuum, unquote, which is true enough, it does not follow that a vacuum is filled with hellfire. Nothing is gained by frightening yourself. And frightening yourself is very destructive. Miracles need freedom from fear. And part of miracles' healing value involves that very freedom from fear. Note number 4. The word, quote, atone really means undo. And if you will look up the word atonement, then you will find that an obsolete meaning is, quote, to set at one or reconcile or to agree, unquote. But obviously, before reconciliation or agreement is possible, what is out of accord must be undone. It may seem as if Darkness must be dispelled before light can come in. But the truth is that darkness is dispelled by light. The next phase of the course will place increasing emphasis on the healing, the undoing of fear. Healing as the undoing of fear. Since changing learning patterns requires undoing the old learning patterns. The real meaning of retroactive inhibition is simply that when two kinds of learning coexist, they interfere with each other. Therefore, when you say, "If you want me to, I will," please add, "and if you don't want me to, I won't." This is the right use of inhibition. There has to be some control over learning for channelizing purposes. Sometimes the new learning is the more important and has to inhibit the old learning. The new learning inhibiting the old learning is a form of correction. Note number 6 on Miracle Principle number 24. Everything that results in lack of love, which you call sin, is the result of inferior learning, which, if overlearned, becomes very stable. Everything that results in lack of love, which you call sin, is the result of inferior learning, which, if overlearned, becomes very stable. Miracles are a way of undoing overlearned patterns of love lack. Miracles are a way of undoing overlearned patterns of love lack. Miracles bring light into darkness, and that is where their healing and correcting value lies. They bring light into darkness. Miracle Principle number 25. Miracles depend on timing. This is why you shouldn't waste time. I told you before that time would cease when time was no longer useful as a learning aid. There is a way of speeding you up, and that is by leaving more and more time for me, so that you can devote it to miracles. There is a way of speeding you up, and that is by leaving more and more time for me, says our teacher, so that you can devote time to miracles. Leave more and more time for me, says our teacher, so that you can devote time to miracles. The reason I direct everything that is unimportant is because it is no way to waste your free will. Directing unimportant things is no way to waste your free will. If you insist on doing the trivial your way, you waste too much time and will on it. Will cannot be free if will and time is tied up in trivia. Your will never gets out if it's being tied up in trivia. I will tell you exactly what to do in connection with everything that doesn't matter. Everything that doesn't matter is not an area where choice should be invested. There is a better use of time. Note number 4. You have to remember to ask me to take charge of all minutiae. And when you remember to ask me to take charge of the minutiae, says our teacher, then the minutiae will be taken care of so well and so quickly that you cannot get bogged down in the minutiae. And the only remaining problem is that you will be unwilling to ask for your teacher to take charge of the minutiae. The only remaining problem is that you will be unwilling to ask your teacher for this because you are afraid not to be bogged down in the minutiae. Your fear of not being bogged down in the minutiae, don't let that hold you back. If you will ask, I, says our teacher, will arrange these unimportant things, even if you're not too enthusiastic. I am not intruding on your will, but I am trying to free your will up. Note number 5. Prayer can be very specific in little matters. If you need a coat, for example, ask me where to find one. I know your taste well, and I also know where the coat is that you would eventually buy anyway. If you do not like the coat afterwards, that is what would have happened anyway. I cannot save you more time than you will let me, says our teacher. But if you are willing to try the higher shopping service, which also covers all lower order necessities, and even quite a number of whims within reason, then I, says our teacher, have very good use for the time that we could save. If you are willing to try the higher shopping service, HSS, which covers all lower order necessities and even quite a number of whims within reason, then I have very good use for the time that we could save, says our teacher. Note number 7. Remember, the specific answer that you get depends on the specific question that you ask. For example, you could ask, where can I find a particular brand of coat? Or you could ask, where's the coat I want? Or where's the coat I should get? And so on. The form of the thought determines the level of the answer. Do not get bogged down in distractions if distractions now arise. Distractions are reflections of old learning patterns, and distractions arise because you do not like what I have said about leaving minutiae to me. Your distractions merely illustrate your unwillingness to not get bogged down because you're afraid of this course. So don't use distractions that way. This course is about willingness, not unwillingness. Unwillingness has to be replaced by willingness, because willingness is part of readiness, without which learning cannot occur. Miracle principle number 26. A miracle rearranges the order of perception, which means a miracle places the levels of perception in their true perspective. This heals at all levels because all sickness comes from confusing the levels of perception. Note 2 on number 26. The reason for your difficulty with this is not that you doubt or distantiate or cannot believe. It is more of a reaction formation against a pull which you recognize is so intense that you are afraid. You think you'll be uprooted. Lord, heal me is the only legitimate prayer. This also means, Lord, correct for me, because the only thing that you should pray for is forgiveness. you have everything else. Note number 4. Now take this personally and listen to divine logic. If when you have been forgiven, you have everything else, and you have been forgiven, then you have everything else. That's divine logic. Listen to divine logic and take it personally. If when you have been forgiven, you have everything else, and you have been forgiven, then you have everything else. This happens to be the simplest of all propositions. If P, then Q. P, therefore Q. Note number 5. Your real question is P true? If you will review the evidence, I think that you will find this inescapable. I went on very personal record to this effect, and I am the only completely true witness for God. You have every right to examine my credentials. In fact, I urge you to do so. It may have been years. Note number 6. The purpose of this plan for the correction of your perception is to restore everything to you. That is, to restore your awareness of everything. You had everything when you were created, just as everyone did. Having been restored to this original state, you naturally become part of the healing plan yourself. You now share my inability to tolerate lack of love in yourself and in everyone else, and you must now join the great crusade to correct it. You now share my inability to tolerate lack of love in yourself and in everyone else, and you now must join the great crusade to correct it. The slogan for this crusade is listen, learn, and do. This means listen to my voice, learn to undo the error, and do something to correct it. The first two are not enough. The first two, listen to my voice and learn to undo the error, the first two are not enough. The real members of my party are active workers. Note number 7 on miracle principle number 26. The power to work miracles belongs to you. I will arrange the right opportunities for you to do them, but you must be ready and you must be willing to do them, since you are already able. And doing the miracles will bring conviction in the ability. I repeat, you will see miracles through your hands, through mine. Conviction really comes through accomplishment. Remember that ability is the potential. Achievement is its expression, and healing is the purpose. Miracle principle number 27. A miracle is a universal blessing from God through me to all my brothers and sisters. It is the privilege of the forgiven to forgive. It's the privilege of the forgiven to forgive. Souls cannot rest until everyone has found release. Note number 2, Miracle Principle 27. The disciples were officially and specifically told to heal others as physicians of the Lord. The disciples were also told to heal themselves, and the disciples were promised that I would never leave them or forsake them. Healing is the natural profession of the children of God, because the children of God have professed me. The children need both strength and help, and you cannot help until you are strong. The everlasting arms are your strength, and the wisdom of God is your help. Heaven and earth shall pass away means that heaven and earth will not always exist as separate states. My word, which is the resurrection and the life, shall not pass away, because life is eternal. You are the work of God, and God's work is wholly loving and wholly lovable. And wholly loving and wholly lovable is how you must think of yourself in your heart, because this is what you are. Wholly lovable and wholly loving. This is how you must think of yourself in your heart, because this is what you are. Miracle principle number 28. Miracles are a means of organizing different levels of awareness. Period. Note number 2. Miracles come from the below conscious or subconscious level. Revelations come from the above conscious, superconscious level. The conscious level is in between the subconscious and the superconscious level. And the conscious level reacts to either subconscious or superconscious impulses in varying ratios. Freud was right about this basic classification, but Freud was wrong about the names. Freud was also right that the content of consciousness is fleeting. Consciousness is the level which engages in the world, and consciousness is the level that is capable of responding both to external and internal impulses. Having no impulses from itself and being primarily a mechanism for inducing response, the conscious level can be very wrong. For example, if the identification is with the body, then consciousness may distort superconscious impulses by denying their source and seeking their impact in the orgasm. This is the result of, quote, mistaken identity. If you will look at the effects of revelation, you will see that there are some similarities in the experiential results, but hardly in the content. If your identification is with the body, then your conscious mind might distort superconscious impulses by denying that they're coming from God and seeking their energy in the orgasm. Note number 4. Revelations induce complete but temporary suspension of doubt and fear. And miracles represent the original form of communication between God and God's children before the intrusion of, quote, fire and ice made this impossible. It should be noted that miracles involve an extremely personal sense of closeness to creation. Revelations induce complete but temporary suspension of doubt and fear. Miracles represent the original form of communication between God and God's children before the intrusion of, quote, fire and ice made this communication impossible. It should be noted that miracles involve an extremely personal sense of closeness to creation, which human beings try to find in sexual relationships. This confusion is responsible for the depression and fear which are often associated with sex. Note number 5. Sex frequently involves lack of love, but revelation is purely a love experience. Physical closeness cannot achieve this lack of love, this love, pure love experience that revelation is. Physical closeness cannot achieve the revelation of this pure love experience. Physical closeness cannot achieve this pure love experience. As was said before, the subconscious impulses properly induce miracles which are interpersonal and result in closeness to others. This can be misunderstood by a personally willful consciousness as an impulse toward sexual gratification. Miracles which are interpersonal and result in closeness to others can be misunderstood by a personally willful consciousness as an impulse toward sexual gratification. What to me a personally willful consciousness experiences in the miracle, the interpersonal and genuine closeness to others can be misunderstood by my ego as an impulse towards sexual gratification. The impulse to interpersonal closeness to others, an impulse from a pure love experience, can be misunderstood by a personally willful consciousness as an impulse toward sexual gratification. Revelation unites you directly with God. Miracles unite you directly with others. Neither the miracle or the revelation emanates from consciousness, but both the miracle and the revelation are experienced in consciousness. This is essential because consciousness is the state which produces action, though consciousness does not inspire action. You are free to believe what you choose, and what you do attest to what you believe. Note number 7 on Miracle Principle 28. The deeper levels of your subconscious always contain the impulse to miracles, but you are free to fill its superficial levels, which are closer to consciousness, with the impulses of this world, and to identify yourself with the impulses of the world. This results in denying yourself access to the miracle level underneath. In conscious actions, then, your interpersonal relationships also become superficial, and then miracle-inspired relating becomes impossible. The deeper levels of your subconscious always contain the impulse to miracles, but you are free to fill the subconscious's superficial levels, which are closer to consciousness, with the impulses of this world, and to identify yourself with those worldly impulses. But what would happen then is that your interpersonal relationships also become superficial, and then miracle-inspired relating becomes impossible. Miracle Principle number 29. Miracles are a way of earning release from fear. Note number 2. Revelation induces a state in which fear has already been abolished. Miracles are thus a means, and revelations are an end. In this sense, miracles and revelation work together. Miracles do not depend on revelation. Miracles induce revelation. You are quite capable of miracles already, even if you may be still too fearful for revelations. Revelation will occur after you engage at the visionary level in a process of denying fear. Revelation will occur after you engage at the visionary level in a process of denying fear. Note number 3, Miracle Principle 29. Revelation is intensely personal, and revelation is actually not translatable into conscious content at all. That is why any attempt to describe revelation in words is usually incomprehensible, even to the writer themselves at another time. This is why the book of Revelation is essentially incomprehensible. That's because revelation induces only experience. Miracles, on the other hand, induce interpersonal action. In the end, miracles are more useful because of their impersonal nature. In this phase of learning, working miracles is more valuable because freedom from fear cannot be thrust upon you in revelation. In this phase of learning, working miracles is more valuable to you than revelation, because freedom from fear cannot be thrust upon you as would occur in a revelation. The experience of revelation cannot last. Miracles, therefore, are the essential course of action for everyone. Miracle Principle number 30. Miracles praise God through you. Miracles praise God by honoring God's creations, affirming their perfection. Miracles heal because they deny body identification and they affirm spirit identification. By perceiving the spirit, miracles adjust the levels and see the levels in proper alignment. And this proper alignment places the spirit at the center where minds can't communicate directly. Miracle Principle number 31. Miracles should inspire gratitude, not awe. Human beings should thank God for what they really are. The children of God are very holy, and the miracle honors the holiness of the children of God. Note number 2, God's creations cannot lose their holiness, though their holiness can be hidden. The miracle uncovers our holiness and brings our holiness into the light where our holiness belongs. Holiness can never really be hidden in ego, in darkness. Holiness can never really be hidden in guilt. But a person can deceive themselves on this point. And a person deceiving themselves about their own holiness, that makes them fearful, because in their heart they know that they're not guilty. They know they're not a sinner. They know they are holy. This illusion of deceiving yourself about your holiness and believing that you are not holy makes you fearful, because in your heart you know that that's a deception. As with all illusions, we waste we make enormous efforts to establish the validity of our guilt. But the miracle sets validity where validity belongs. Eternal validity belongs only to the Spirit. The miracle acknowledges only the truth. The miracle thus dispels a person's illusions, their self-deceptions about themselves, and puts a person into communion with their self and with God.